is speed governors in rent-a-cars. We find that tourists are speeding. They are turning turtles in the vehicle. You can't turn turtle if a vehicle is moving slow. So it is definitely they have been driving very fast and in a rash and negligent manner. Under Section 110, 1F of the Motor Vehicles Act, it empowers the government to make rules for regulating construction and equipment of motor vehicles. And because of this, Honorable Speaker, the Government of India has brought out rules, which is Rule 118, which contains provisions relating to speed governor. In 2015, the Government of India gave particulars of which vehicles were supposed to have speed governors, and they tried to bring an exemption. And then in 2017, they withdrew the exemption. The Supreme Court Committee on Road Safety Monitoring immediately directed that mandating the speed limit equipment to be devices to be fitted. And in this, I have seen that we have people who drive as if they come for races, either on highways, village roads, or even on the bridges when we see them driving at very, very obnoxious speeds. And I think, therefore, it is imperative that the government should implement and enforce the speed governor rule. It is not simply fitting them, because sometimes you have a certificate that it has been fitted, but after that they are disconnected and they continue to ply as if there is no speed governor. I am also told that certain speed governors, after fitment, after they are connected, still malfunction. My question is, what do you do to ensure this? Because this relates to safety of our passengers, safety of people walking on the road, safety of commuters, and safety of other vehicles. The second thing we have got is tourists who drive rashly, doing stunts and driving on beaches. I think first thing the government should do is direct these people who are giving these vehicles, rent-a-cars on hire, to have a list of do's and don'ts, because most of the people don't know. They just come, they have a license, and they don't know where they're supposed to go and where they're not supposed to go. If they're told about it, I think at least 50% of them will try to follow. But there's another thing. Unless you wield the stick, no one complies. And therefore, I believe, if you spare the rod, you spoil the child. Therefore, it is important that we should ensure that these vehicles which are driving, these rent-a-car vehicles, should be penalized with heavy penalties, including jail penalties, because if they are made to stay one day or one night in the jail, nobody will want to spend their holiday in a jail. And therefore, I believe that when you are rough and you are tough, you are bound to get action which they will make sure they comply. Is it not surprising that when our very same people who travel abroad, they drive vehicles abroad, they follow every rule in the book. They are so disciplined. But when they come here into India, they drive as if there is no tomorrow. Therefore, I believe that we have to be tough with them. Invariably, the owner ends up being summoned by the police. The owner is also being made liable along with this driver who disappears from the scene. And at the end, the owner suffers because his vehicle is damaged or completely destroyed. We also have cases of drunken driving. Now, in drunken driving, it is twofold. One is the tourists who drive these cars, and also our own locals. Let us be honest about it. I had spoken about this drunken driving in the House, and I had pointed out that we need to enforce this rule to prevent drunken driving so that we don't have these accidents and fatalities on these roads. Imagine, I remember there was an incident where in a famous pub in Kandolim beach, a lady sat in the car completely drunk, started the car and just drove and knocked somebody down there. This is not, we don't send people, our children don't go out there to get knocked down by some drunken driver. And we don't want this to happen. And I had stated to this House, I made a suggestion, that when you are having these pubs operating in the night, you know you're giving them the excise license beyond certain hours for a fee, no problem. You also make sure that they pay a fee to keep your motor vehicle inspectors or police so that you man this and make sure that these people are checked for alcohol. This does happen even in other parts of India, in Bangalore or in Bombay, wherever you go, in Delhi. There are police waiting outside the pub. You sit in the steering and they'll catch you. Ahead also they will check you. Otherwise, they feel that they are empowered and they are charged, and now I can stand on one leg. They can't even turn the wheel of that car, and they will hit somebody even at a start. So I believe that the government should be tough. Don't forgive anyone. Let him spend one night also in the jail, and nobody will then do it. Because they tell you, you look at it, go to any other place, they tell you, oh, the police is very strict. So they will go in a group, one doesn't drink, the others may drink, and that sober person is the one who will be the one who drives. There's one more thing which I want to point out to the August House, is that there is a provision in the Motor Vehicles Act. The provision in the Motor Vehicles Act was introduced by the 2019 amendment, and I will pass a copy of this to the Honorable Minister. It is section 210D. It is a very, very good move which was brought in by the central government. I'm giving just the relevant page because the whole gazette is not needed. In this, there is a provision. First, it's 210C speaks about the central government, which may make rules for design, construction, and maintenance standards for national highways. That does not come into you. But 210D is for the state government. And I'll read this. The state government may make rules for design, construction, and maintenance standards for roads other than national highways, and for any other matter which is or may be prescribed by the state government. Now, I want to bring this to the notice of the Honorable House, that when this section was introduced, when this amendment was introduced, the Honorable Union Minister himself said, we are bringing this to make these contractors accountable so that we have good quality roads. And therefore, I believe we must have a shift in our thought process. It will take resistance. I warn the Honorable Minister. It may be resistance which may come from another department, but I think you must enforce this because statutorily the duty is cast upon you to frame these rules, because it speaks about the transport department making 210D, it is. I've ticked that there. And it speaks about state government making rules for roads other than national highways. Do you see that? I'll just read again. The state government may make rules for design, construction, and maintenance standards for roads and other national highways, other than national highways, and for any other matter which is or may be prescribed by the state government. And I say why? Construction, let the PWD do. I'm not saying you become a construction company or an agency, but you have to give the direction, because you will know where accidents take place. You know where speed limits are required to be maintained. The PWD doesn't know. The PWD will come and install a board. You will know from your feedbacks, the moment you all get in your systems about vehicle damages, insurance claims, and the police are the other ones who come to know about these things. And that is how you start identifying black spots and all other things, and therefore you control traffic at these places. But if we have bad roads, I think this will be a major problem for us. The Union Minister, the Honorable Union Minister of Transport, Mr. Gadkari, himself said very recently, I'll pass this down. One for the Honorable Speaker and one for the Honorable Minister. He even went a step further to say engineers to be held accountable, face action for any pothole on national highways. So please understand this. If you are strict, then you can take action. Of course, I will bring to the notice of this Honorable House that when such kind of action came before the Kerala High Court, the judge himself said that you need to make sure that the engineers go on the road and do these works. not sit in their office, because unless they're physically present, they don't know what's to be done. Now, I'm going to deal with a controversial topic, that is tourist taxis and app aggregators. I know this is a very controversial topic, and our local taxi is often called mafia. But if you remember, before these aggregators came in, our local taxis were very much loved by domestic tourists and international foreign tourists. They would even contact them back and they would book them again and again. There's also a sense of belonging, a sense of familiarity, and a familial relationship which is developed between these people, the customers and the taxi owner. They are almost like a family relationship. And that is why the system and the tourism was going well. I don't know when it started going bad, but now with the app aggregator coming in, with great respect, I remember strong battles being made, strong opposition being made. Remember one thing, there are some black sheep in every family, in every profession, including our legal profession, there are black sheep, I don't say no. But just because of a handful, you don't kill the entire industry. And therefore, I want to point out that when there is a tourist taxi, that was called tourist taxi in those days, now they are called some different word, I will tell you what they are called. But tourist taxi, they need a badge. For a badge, you need 15-year domicile. You need a police clearance certificate. You also need a character certificate and 8th standard pass. If you need your 15-year domicile over here, you definitely cannot have somebody who's from out, because unless that person satisfies the domicile requirement. But these app aggregators, large number of their drivers, to our understanding is, they are employing non-Goans who don't have the badge. There are a few of ours, the local taxi owners also, who have employed such people, but I say we should enforce this rule across the board. Doesn't matter even if it is at the cost of these people, but everyone must be uniform across the board to have this badge, and without a badge, you should not be able to sit on the steering wheel of such vehicles. My feedback has been that if a vehicle, a taxi, which is with a Goa miles or these app aggregators, then what happens is that police or whoever the RTO says, oh, I'm from this Goa miles, after a little detention, they are let off, as if they are above board, above law. So I believe that you need to have strict enforcement of the rule to ensure that our people get the benefit and there is no such type of flow. Second part is identification of this app aggregator. If you go out of Goa, you see this Ola, you see Uber, whatever is mentioned, on the taxi it is there. But here our taxi drives without, you don't know whether he is of A company or B company of the aggregator. He just keeps going. And if he just bluffs that he belongs to that, you have to so believe it. Therefore, I believe that let them be identified. And for another reason, I will tell you. What they do is, there is no stand for these vehicles, but they come into the villages and hang outside these guest houses or outside the hotels. And they wait there after dropping the passenger and they strike a deal. You call me, I'll be outside. And then directly on a call, they pick up that same passenger and they keep going. So they used it for the first trip, and thereafter they keep recurring to get this, and the aggregator is left out. I'm not arguing in favor of an aggregator, but pointing out how this kills the local tourist taxi business, which is operating in our own villages. Now, why are our people being called mafia? Because it's generally relating to the fees which are being charged or the rates which are being charged. First thing I want to point out, these app aggregators focus mostly on the coastal belt or in places where there is large business. They don't go into the hinterland unless occasionally. I have also got complaints of people saying that when they book and they are called they don't want to take trips where there's no return trip. So therefore they cancel it. An app aggregator like Goa Miles has got an app on which you have an option of vehicles. And then when you have an option of vehicles, one such vehicle is an SUV, but they don't have SUVs. They give you a different vehicle, like an Innova or something else will come. The SUV character, this goes for a Bolero, a Scorpio. So you have already paid, you get another one, you don't think what really happened, but in the process you have lost. So please understand this. Second, you have to pre-book. There is an option for post-payment, post-trip payment, but you have to have a minimum 350 into their account, which means if money of yours will be cut, you like it or not. As if they will blame you, you fight in the court. You have no time for this. The question now is, I have heard sometimes even the government says, oh, they are offering cheaper rates. Yes, and I know under Motor Vehicles Act there is a provision where you can offer any amount which is less than the notified rate. If that is so, that means that a contractual rate which you can agree. If it is so, I don't mind when an individual taxi does that with a customer. You may say, I will take your taxi for 5 days and therefore I will charge you this lesser rate, but not higher than the prescribed notified rate. But if your Goa Miles, which came along with some Goa taxi patron or something like that, when you have this, because that is now become part of Goa Miles, when you are having this in collaboration with a state agency, which is the GTDC, that means the government is promoting Goa Miles. And if the government is promoting this app aggregators, it means that the government, being in the dominant position, is allowing unfair competition. When you allow such unfair competition, do you call these other people who charge as per the rate a mafia? I want this to be made clear, because if you have cases of overcharging, let there be a written complaint, let action be taken, suspend that vehicle and take action as fit by law. But simply making allegations because they charge you the notified rate, that becomes the problem. And therefore, the public perception is that these are mafia because you say that they are mafia, but not telling what is being done. I will tell the Honorable Speaker that when this Goa Miles was being introduced, I remember that many of the taxi people came and saw me because they were not happy with this introduction. I remember at that time Goa Miles was being offered a lot of incentives and discounts, including not payment of a fee for 1 year. And I remember Michael Lobo himself espousing the cause of the local taxi drivers, and he was working very hard. He continues, I know, even to this day, to espouse their cause. But unfortunately, the government of the day ran over us and allowed them to come in. I have no problem about it. But there is another thing which happened. Parallelly, a petition was filed before the Competition Commission of India in Delhi, where some of our taxi owners were hauled up there, including a priest who was supporting the local community. We had to engage lawyers, I had to draft replies, and we finally, at the end of the day, we succeeded. We got it thrown out. I asked this one question to the government. Just because they were opposing, you ran to commission, you didn't, but a petition was filed before the Competition Commission. What you do today, with your dominant role and virtually threatening and pressurizing the local taxi, don't you think this is unfair trade practice where you need to be hauled up along with these app aggregators before Competition Commission? I think we need to look into this. And I say there's also one more issue which comes up, which many people don't know. These app aggregators have got something known as a dynamic rating. Dynamic rate. When it rains, the charge goes up. When it is time, when schools are left, then the people are going home, instead of making less, they make it higher. So it fluctuates. For the same distance, depending on the demand, if the demand goes up, the rate goes up. It's something inverse, which I normally thought when you have a high demand, rate falls, but it goes up and sometimes not available. So how does the government think of attending to this kind of situations? And then booking of the vehicles, I've already mentioned about it. Just another 3 minutes I will run. There is taxi stands for the hotels. When the taxis had started in the beginning with business, that time they were being told if you want permit to run a business at a hotel, then you have an NOC. So like the hotel itself will say, okay, 5 taxis, 10 taxis, and they used to have a queue system. Without that NOC, you could not get a permit. Unfortunately, that is now been done away. And now you call what I said now is moto cabs. And under the scheme of moto cabs, this NOC is not being asked for. And that is what we are hearing. Fights, and sometimes guests being affected. And I actually feel very bad when I see that, because I don't believe we should have a negative perception across the world, because Goa is very famous international tourist destination. And if we have this kind of things happening, in the process, the tourist gets confused, the tourist is scared, the tourist is frightened, the tourist may leave and never come again. We don't want these kind of things. Finally, even these hotels are built here to boost our economy and to provide jobs for our people. But if they are going to start providing jobs for these people, then what happens to the fate of the locals over there? I think the government needs, whatever view you may have, whatever I may have expressed, I still said I'm putting my points across, but I would request the government, call them to the negotiating table. I know sometimes some are a little hot-headed and some are very, they don't change their mind. We can try to sit down with reason. And I think if the government can invite the people, we can have a happy resolution in this behalf. If you remember, there was once a telecom company, I won't have to name it here. The telecom company came in giving free service to everybody. And everybody started running and subscribing to it. Then it gave, after 1 year, they said very minimum charges. After the minimum charges, a little minimum more. And finally, they're market-dominating players. This is the way, if you remember in history, how merchants became rulers in India. They came simply for trading and ended up being rulers in our nation. So I think we need to attend to this and quickly intervene so that we can have a good resolution. I also have learned one more thing, that drivers from neighboring states of Goa have approached the Chief Minister or the government to allow their drivers with their badges to be employed in Goa. I request the government of Goa not to allow this, otherwise we will have others coming and our locals losing their scope for employment. On the second aspect I just want to speak about it is on the meter renewal fees. When the meters were being installed, I was there myself, we were opposing it at that time, and such expensive meters, and now the renewal fee is coming to 4,500 a year, which is the cost of another meter. So I think the government needs to ask these companies, because after having given certain companies the exclusive privilege, I think you ask them to give a discounted rate and not to have such high rates. But they're being charged for it. As far as KTC is concerned, I have this thing in particular. It's an aged fleet. And I know the Honorable Minister is making something to have an environment-friendly type of these EV buses. But those EV buses don't come into our villages with the narrow roads. And when we had requested for change of the bus, you all were gracious enough to give me one EV vehicle. But unfortunately, what happened was in the narrow roads of Britona, Ekoshi, Pomburpa, that side, the bus touched somebody's tiles. Those people came out, stopped the bus, beat up the driver, and the conductor was pulled, and then they said, we are not coming again. So I don't want those buses. Please give us some regular buses which fit on those roads, because those buses are really big. Keep them on the highway, keep them where there are broad roads, but don't give where they will end up getting beaten. Please, another 2 minutes, because there's so many things are there here. I don't like to cut short. And other thing is, we have a bus which leaves from Panchim, going through Sukor, coming into Ukasai, Bastora, going to Mapsa. This is one bus I have to make one special mention, because it breaks down frequently. There's no replacement. There's no one telling what is happening. And people who have gone get inconvenienced. People who are waiting don't get a bus. And so many times we have to phone them up asking, where's the bus? Why is the bus not come? It has broken down. I request the Honorable Minister to kindly just look into this, because I generally don't have other complaints, but this is one which goes along a big route, and I think we should look into it. Bus stops are very pathetic, and I think we need to ensure that we need some benches, we need even the roof. Some of them don't even have the roofs. As far as KTC drivers are concerned, I think you all have already got a representation from the KTC drivers of the arrears of 7th pay commission. And there was a settlement which was done, and it says there, I'll only read paragraph 9 of that settlement. It is agreed by the employer that those workmen who have either expired, superannuated, terminally ill, or disabled after 1/1/2016 till 31st October 2018. 2016 is that, and 31st October is your date when you all agreed, shall be eligible to all arrears payable as and when decided on approval given by the state government. Therefore, it requires your approval. I would request these people, they get very small amounts, but even that will be a financial burden, I understand, but I request, please pay them. I know of certain cases of Kadamba ex-employees getting 1,000 rupees as pension, which is very, very poor, very meager. Another thing now I want to speak on is about the panchayats. Panchayats GIA grants have been reduced, and I think that the minister should try to make a demand to get higher amounts, because otherwise a panchayat will hardly end up getting 10 lakhs in a year, and we should not be sufficient to do any work in the panchayat. Second is the timely payment of amounts to a panchayat. Please make sure the payments are made. And one major thing I want to speak is about the transfer of panchayat secretaries. We have in Bastora, I think it's something unique, where we have a magnetic secretary. Why I use the word magnetic is because after transfer, this secretary comes back, because I know only magnets have that power of attraction. And this magnetic secretary has been there for 9 years. I had brought it to the attention of the government in 2023, and the government was pleased to transfer the secretary. But magnetic powers that this secretary has, I don't know what is the fatal attraction, because you know a magnet cannot work on a singular this thing. It has to have an attraction. The other pole has to attract. Where is that pole attracting? I don't know. But I think this, I request 9 years is a long time. Why you want to come back? What is your personal interest in the matter? If you love to sit in one post, naturally suspicions arise. And then your behavior also changes. And that is why people came to me and told me about these issues. I want to just point out one small thing. This I won't talk totally in detail, but I'll just pass this across. These are just suggestions. Copy. One copy, Hercules. One copy for the Honorable Speaker, one for the Minister. Honorable Speaker, there is one thing I want to point out to the Honorable Minister. I'm making little suggestions, because I've just given you your chart, so you don't have to take notes. It is only a request for increment of expenditures, because I put what is existing on one side and what is a proposed revision on the other side. So if you can look into it, because this has financial implications, I don't want immediately you say, yes, I will do, but you can just look into this, so that including increasing of the staff, please look at the item number 2, because how much staff we got. Because today you're asking, fill online things, computerize, submit these reports. It becomes very difficult with the existing strength of the staff, including computer operators which are needed, posts to be created. Otherwise, it becomes very, very difficult for panchayats. They will have to work till 10 o'clock in the night, and they are not accustomed, they will not be able to do that. Other thing is, now last thing I want to talk is about industries. I know that Honorable Minister has the power of bringing good industries into Goa. And when I mean good, I talk of good non-polluting industries. And I've seen his efficiency in the manner in which he will communicate effectively. And so therefore, I would appeal to him that get good industries, because I think our industries are moving out of Goa. And therefore, I think that we should try to bring some better incentives and attractions which we can. If you remember, industrial, what's that called? The IDC Act has a provision, I think section 34 or something like that, which exempts requirements of village panchayats from having to give any say or NOCs and all that, because you're the one who gives everything at your level. So, and you collect the fees. So, see, these kind of things by which it becomes like a single window so that you can process everything at your level. Let everything in the industry be controlled by you at your level. Let it not go. You can even have, let us say, even if you have to go to some factories or something, let it be all inbuilt into your thing so that you can get everything done. And this way, you, like how you see other states running, inviting investors, big investors, I think we can do that, and I'm confident you'll be able to achieve these targets. Other thing is the Investment Promotion Board. I only appeal to the Honorable Minister, let the Investment Promotion Board not be a route to allow people to dabble into real estate or to allow people to propose projects, get them cleared, and then propose them to sale to somebody else. Because I think this is what is going on. You may not realize it, but you may realize when it's going in for a transfer, or you allow somebody by a proxy to start running that establishment for which it is, because the question comes is, how many have you cleared and how many have been set up? Then you'll come to know what really is going on, whether those procurements of the approvals were only with an intention of placing it on a platform, like you get a town planning approval and I sell your project. So I think that these are the major issues on which I am talking, and I request the government to kindly look into it. Just one thing, I just want to see if I've forgotten anything. There is one last issue I just want to say. I know that there has been a petition in the High Court relating to Gram Sevaks functioning as Panchayat secretaries, because there are two different kind of posts. But having appointed Gram Sevaks as Panchayat secretaries, and for several years they have functioned as such, and I think that the government can consider whether you will can amalgamate both these posts. I think that will be something far better, so that those people don't go, because after having served, heavy experience, so I think that government can think of rationalizing that. I'm obliged.
I request, we will speak after your, I request each and every member to kindly put in your request now.